Good morning and good afternoon to you wherever you may be here on this beautiful Saturday at Chris and Barry Fieldhouse as the off-season has ended for the Augusta Jaguar volleyball team as they begin the 2018 campaign in what should be a very exciting weekend of volleyball. I'm Robert Ambrose alongside Blake Collins. Blake, how's it going today?
Absolutely wonderful, Robert. You cannot ask for a better day to play a volleyball game. It's absolutely crisp outside. Little bit chilly. It's better than the hot days we've experienced down here in Augusta. And if you've ever been down here, you know what we're talking about with the humidity and the heat that's been down here. So a really good day to be outside, but also with some of the clouds and everything going overhead. Glad to be indoors playing indoors here at Chris and Barry Field.
Absolutely, and timing works out perfectly to start the season on the weekend, the last weekend before football season begins. Next week, volleyball gets its whole weekend this weekend. It's the Jaguar Rumble tournament to begin this Jaguar season here at Chris and Barry's Fieldhouse. And for game one, the Jaguars hosting Albany State, and there will be 3 more games to follow this day. This is a quadruple header. The Jaguars will close out today's game, tonight's action against Mount Olive in the final game beginning at 7:30. That's a tentative time depending on the game flow of the other games. And then they'll play in the final of 2 games tomorrow against Montevallo at 2:30 Eastern time start to that tomorrow. So 4 games today, 2 tomorrow, 6 games total in this Jaguar Rumble tournament. It should be an exciting weekend of volleyball.
And also it's going to be a tough contest for both teams in tough matchup, especially on the Albany State side, because Augusta brings back a stacked roster with them, a lot of juniors and sophomores that helped Augusta get into the playoff picture last year, returning on this roster for the Jaguars. And an awesome 1-2 punch for the Jaguars, setting up on both sides as an outside attacker and a really good blocker, and then on the other side as well, you can kind of mix and match with the blocking and the attacking. And Mackenzie Beck has returned for Augusta. She was lights out last year for the Jaguars, attacked on a lot of aces, and she was very critical in scoring a lot of points for the Jags. And then on the opposite side as well, Natalia Govea returning as well. So it should be a very tough matchup here for Albany State. But let's not count out Albany State as well. It's going to be an electric first game to start off the Jaguar Rumble tournament. And we haven't had a tournament like this in a very long time here in Augusta, so this is absolutely a treat to see here at Chris and Barry Fieldhouse.
It absolutely is. We're looking forward to bringing it to you as well, as we're now counting down to the end of the off season here for the Jaguars. And this is a Jaguar team. You mentioned Mackenzie Beck. She's beginning her senior year here tonight. She did transfer last year as a junior from Glendale Community College. She's from Phoenix, came a long way to play volleyball here at Augusta, and she is not disappointed in her junior year last year, now her senior year, looking to lead the team. This is a team that returns almost everybody. Last season's team did not have a single senior on its roster, so most everybody is back this year, plus a few new faces, and it should gel really well with the experience that this team had. And with that said, the Jaguars, it's early, but they're picked to finish 3rd in the Peach Belt Conference this season, and that's a huge jump from last year.
Absolutely, and it'll be interesting to see how head coach Sharon Quarles intermingles here some of the incoming freshmen into today's affairs for the Augusta games, to get some of the incoming freshmen tournament experience and very quality volleyball experience heading into what looks to be a promising season for the Jags, and get them ready for a possible playoff push. And especially, we have a incoming freshman here on the Augusta University women's volleyball roster who is from the area and who went to my alma mater in Greenbrier High School. So it'll be interesting to see how head coach Sharon Quarles integrates all these incoming freshmen and see how much playing time they get here today as well.
We will pause for the introduction of players, the starting lineups, and the national anthem. Welcome back to Christenberry Field House. Welcome you back to Christenberry Field House as we're set to begin the 2018 volleyball season here between the Augusta Jaguars and the Golden Rams of Albany State University. And as we get ready to start this game, head coach for the Jaguars, Sharon Quarles. She's going into her 10th season. She's a 1993 graduate from the University of Florida. She's assisted by Khadija Dickens in her 5th season, a 2012 graduate of Wake Forest. And with Quarles going into her 10th season, a full decade here at AU, she brings a lot of experience to this experienced ball club.
Absolutely, and that is going to be pivotal later on in this contest. As well as we look at the Golden Rams roster, they've got a lot of freshmen incoming and a lot to look forward to over the next couple of years. And also, as well, these two teams haven't seen each other except in video. So the element of surprise, too, for Albany State could come into play against a well-prepared Augusta University Jaguar volleyball squad.
And this one is finally underway here as some of the other participating teams in this tournament have come to watch some of the action. I believe the Mount College players have arrived. The Mount Olive players have arrived.
See just a slight technical error to start off there on the Augusta side, but they come right back with a full throttle attack and get that point right back, Robert.
They do. I believe that was Beck on the kill. She was the team leader in multiple categories, including kills, last season, and she picks up right where she left off. We're tied at 1 here in set number 1. And Natalia Govea was way back on that serve, and she's able to, that's a service error as a result, and it's 2-1.
Yeah, just a little too strong there on the power through the serve right there, and she'll definitely, when she has another chance to serve again on the rotation, be able to get a cleaner serve off. But right now, Albany State kind of surprising Augusta right now, and a lot of interesting deflections and errors from the Jaguars thus far, but Augusta, especially last year, has been known to come back, so let's see what happens.
It's 3-2 in favor of Albany State.
And Robert, you try to keep the ball alive as much as possible, and that heart and that spirit came back to haunt Albany State right there.
Absolutely. It's now tied at 3 here in this one. We're going back and forth with it. And that goes out of bounds. And AU gets the point. It was hit out off of Albany State.
He had good direction on the attack there from Albany State. Just a little strong at the top of the point of the attack there. And another strong serve that Augusta cannot fit into field of play.
4-3 in favor of Albany State. It's so far, it's very early, but this first set has been back and forth. It's about as early as it can get, though.
It's a good battle in between the trenches between both of these teams. You're seeing very well pinpointed attacks designed to throw the balance of some of these defensive setters off, and that point right there was well taken as Augusta capitalized on a defensive miscue there from Albany State.
The Jaguars send Sharik Brian Garmos, a junior from San Juan, Puerto Rico, with the serve on that one. And ultimately the Jaguars get the point as once again Albany State hits it out, and they're up 6-4. That's 3 straight for the Jaguars. And once again, Brian Garmos back to serve. I believe she's one of the newcomers this season. And we get back on the Jaguars side. Govea hits it up in the air and a kill. 7-4.
Pinpoint attack right between the libero and the defensive setter there. You couldn't get any more accurate than that. Even on the dive attempts to try to secure the defensive setup there, they could not reach the volleyball. So a very good attack by Augusta to garner that point.
Absolutely. It's now 7-5. Augusta, they've scored 5 of the last 6 points here in this first set. Talked about Mackenzie Beck earlier. Some other good players on the Jaguars coming back to watch her. Natalia Govea. She was generally last season the person that you'd see on serves. She's back this season. She's also a senior from Rio de Janeiro. And with the newcomer Sharik Brian Garmos from San Juan, Puerto Rico, this is a very diverse team that the Jaguars have this year.
Very much so. And with some of those players coming back, and integrating into the new players that Augusta University is bringing back, the chemistry is going to be stronger this year than it was last year with some of the more experienced players leading the charge into the season.
Well, absolutely.
Jags.
Let's not forget, when last season ends in November, they have an entire 10-month off season where they're all together to get ready for this season. They don't just all begin a month before the season with training and have to figure out how to gel. A few new players to fit in there, but overall they've had a lot of time to get ready for this season. It's a long-awaited game here.
Battle of the blockers up front that Albany State gets the better of on that occasion. Man, oh man, the blocking up front is fierce by both squads. And also, let's not surrender the fact either that Augusta last year had playoff experience.
Yes, they did. They reached the semifinals of the Peach Belt Conference tournament. So they'll look to build off of that as well, and they've had the whole offseason to think about that as well.
And that's critical with intertwining these freshmen into the Augusta Jaguars style of play, getting them ready for a rigorous season ahead. And
an important thing here is the Jaguars, with a lot of people back, they do have a bunch of seniors. Becca's a senior, and Uvea begins her senior year this year, as does Savannah Gonzalez, who's an important returner this season. But with the new players, they're going to also learn the system well, and they're going to learn from the veterans, so when it's their turn to step up when these veterans aren't here next year, they're going to be ready to take charge, and that's a good sign of things to come in the future as well.
Absolutely. And also keep an eye out as well for Blair Bolton. You want to talk? You hinted on Natalia Govea's serving ability. Blair Bolton has a really unique serving ability, one of the best I've seen here in Augusta. And let's see if, when she gets into the ballgame, if she utilizes that, because that is a sight to behold as well.
And what we're seeing early on, and a good sign of a normal veteran ball club, is the Jaguars. This gets emphasized. We have a timeout here. This is emphasized in basketball as well as the two sports played on the gym. But it's important in both sports, volleyball and basketball. Players need to know what part of the court to be at what time. And the Jaguars are showing that awareness already early on, to be in the right position to move the ball well and hit it around and get some early points. And that's why they have the 12-7 lead.
Absolutely. And not only that, as we're about to head back to action here, the Jaguars' footwork has been phenomenal thus far in this first set here. And also, too, it's something we touched on last year, too. Not only is the footwork phenomenal for the Jags, but you can also use your eye movement as well to move players to the opposite way of which you're intending to attack with the volleyball and expose the defense that way. So that's another factor in strategic volleyball as well that you can capitalize in a major way here if you're both squads.
And the Jaguars get it across. It's high up in the air, and two Albany State players collide with it, but they get it back across. Now the Jaguars moving it up towards the net. A diving save on the other end. And the beautiful ball movement and positioning of the Jaguars caught Albany State off guard as they really... The ball moved in an unexpected direction for them.
It's like in the sport of baseball. In volleyball, it works really well here. You never want to get caught back on the heels of your feet. You always want to try to be center, either almost on the balls or kind of position on the balls to the toes, because that way you have a better standing position to defend the volleyball or defend the position you're in to be able to keep the ball alive.
And Jaguars, another great move there, and they've doubled up the Golden Rams. It's 14-7, 2 touchdowns to 1. Yes, we'll use football scores with a week left before college football season next Saturday. And that lands inbound, so that's a point for the Golden Rams. It's 14-8.
Good execution on the visibility there by the Golden Rams to see the opening there and execute it flawlessly to put it in the backcourt right where it was inside the baseline to be in play. Very good decision there by the Golden Rams to secure that point.
And now they're starting to answer back a little bit. It's now 14-9. And you can see how the Jaguars respond on defense. The Golden Rams do get the point. But that is a beautiful rotation they're seeing. They're in a certain position, and then once the Golden Rams begin their attack, they do a rotation to be ready. That's incredible. That's phenomenal to watch.
Not only that, but each individual player covers the other ones in their rotation, maneuvers very well to the different positions, and covers the track of the one that's going into a different position very well, so it doesn't leave many openings in a rotation set like that. And that's one thing that the Rams are executing very well, and it's kind of making it tough here as the Rams are starting to mount a comeback against Augusta.
And what a beautiful serve. I believe that was Govea's first time serving this season. As I mentioned, she was the main server last year. Now she shows why she was, and she catches the Golden Rams off guard. They're unable to return it. They basically hit it right at the net. And that gives the Jaguars the point. It's 16-10, and Govea's back to serve once again.
With the libero there, Kennedy Patrick didn't get as much height on that dig as she wanted to off of the hands, and the ball deflected kind of off the front of the dig and went straight instead of up and over, and that cost the Rams their 16th point in Augusta's favor. But they have also counteracted that with 2 straight points now, or at least I thought it was 2 straight points. The referees give that last point to Augusta because it did fall out of bounds, but the Rams are not going away silently.
They absolutely are not, and you'll never see that in volleyball. It's 17-12 Jaguars. And the one thing that volleyball has in common with the game of baseball and softball, and this is crucial, there's no game clock. You just gotta get to 25 points before the other team does. So it's a similar story there. You can't just run out the clock by taking a knee.
Right, and let's not forget either that no matter how this set turns out, the second set, you reset it back to 0, and if you win the second set, you're right back in this ball game, and you're right back in this match. So the Rams are definitely not out of this thing, as it is very early on in the contest, and they're only trailing by 3 points right now, 17-14. So they've got a lot to play for, a lot to fight for, and if this particular matchup goes 5 sets into a sudden death scenario, it's anybody's game at that point, because as you and I both well know, that particular 5th set goes to only 15 points.
Absolutely. It becomes a sprint as opposed to a marathon like the other sets
Absolutely.
do. And it might be even more of a sprint that if you get to that point, the teams switch benches after the first team gets to 8, I believe it is. So they don't really, teams switch benches every set. And then in the 5th, they even it out. So they don't really spend much time at each bench, and that kind of makes it really interesting the way it works. And that's a certain element. So the Jaguars, at one point in this set, they led 14-7, seemed to be on a roll, were moving extremely well, had outstanding rotation, movement, and court awareness. The Golden Rams since then answered, outscored them 7-3 to cut it to 17-14, and then the Jaguars have answered and now have scored 3 straight, and it's 20-14, and we have a timeout here. And talked about the similarities between volleyball, baseball, and softball, and another similarity this sport has with basketball, besides the fact that they both play in the same gym, is the fact that it's a game of runs, both sports, answering back.
Absolutely. Yeah, with the Rams executing I think at one point it was a 3-point run. The Jaguars come firing right back with a 4 to 7-point run, as we've seen right now, to take a 6-point advantage in this particular set, and it makes for also an exciting game because at any particular point you can see a team break away. And in the case of the Rams, they deposit, let's say, 4 straight points, and they're right back into this contest. And at that point, not only have you got Augusta on their heels, but you also have the momentum, and you also have them on the back of their heels, like the Rams just did there with that attack that deflected off and out of play of the Jaguars. So the run for Augusta was just halted right there by the Golden Rams.
Absolutely, as they answer right after the timeout, 20-15. And it's very common in volleyball, probably more common in volleyball than in basketball, speaking of similarities, that you'll see a team come out strong after calling a timeout and be able to answer the call.
And right there, that was a smart decision by the Rams, too, seeing that you had the majority of the Augusta squad up in the front court, with the exception of one in the back court, utilizing that with a soft touch overhand attack, placing it in the most accurate point on the back court on the opposite side of where that one player was a beautiful strategy there implemented by the Golden Rams to secure their 16th point.
It absolutely was. It's now 21-16. Savannah Gonzalez on the serve for the Jaguars there, and the Golden Rams just were not ready for that. There was a lot of diving around and hitting the ball out, so 22-16, so they'll give it back to Gonzalez to serve. Considering this is the first weekend series, or the first game, or the first match of the season, this is one of the best volleyball crowds I've ever seen here today. And speaking of which, those thinking of attending, we have games all day today. This is the first of our quadruple header, and a doubleheader tomorrow beginning at noon Eastern time. By the way, parking here at the Christenberry Fieldhouse is completely free. And you also have other transit options as well. But one of the beautiful things about this small town in Augusta, Georgia, parking's free just about everywhere, including here. So come on down, check out a little great volleyball the last weekend before football season starts.
And not only is Augusta in action against Albany State right now, you have a couple of more squads as well. In Landers here, Mount Olive is here.
Absolutely.
Montevallo, I think, comes in tomorrow in the tournament. You've got a number of teams here, and their fans travel well with the team, and it makes for a great atmosphere here in Augusta, Georgia, for the Jaguar Rumble tournament at Bay, live and live in color.
24-18. It's set point for the Jaguars here, trying to close out this first set. It's up in the air. Jaguars on the attack. They get it over, and they get the point and win. Set number 1. We will take a quick break, and after these messages, we'll be back for set 2. The Jaguars leading it 1-0. We'll be back. Welcome you back to Christenberry Fieldhouse. We're set to start set 2. The teams have switched sides. That is to say, switched benches, which we talked about during set 1. The Jaguars won the first set, 25-18, and are set to begin set 2 here. I'm Robert Ambrose with Blake Collins. You're watching and listening to the Augusta Jaguars on the Augusta University Athletics Network on YouTube for the first time in this 2018-2019 calendar sports season. With volleyball season beginning, we'll have basketball in the winter and baseball in the spring, restarting the cycle here today. And it was a lot of fun last year, Blake, and excited to be back doing it again this year. Jaguars after taking set 1, and of course the Golden Rams looking to respond to that, and that was a high towering pop fly in the air, and the Jaguars get it over. And the beautiful thing about those, it's also similar to baseball here, is teams get plenty of chance to get under those and get into position and hit it around. Well, and for the Jaguars, that's always beneficial.
And see, that's the beautiful thing about a dig, and in correlation to kind of basketball with an assist here, is that digs allow for teammates to get under the volleyball and have a better shot at either digging yourself out of trouble or attacking the net and attacking the opposing team with stronger force. And sometimes it works out great for the teams that dig really well, but then other times, like we just saw there, the dig can take a really, really devastating deflection off you and cost you as well.
Well, it absolutely could, and that's not only being in your position with your feet and keeping your eye on the ball, but getting your hands and fists put together in the right position and hitting it at the right angle as well. And that's a lot harder than getting into the right position otherwise.
Oh, absolutely. But there's also times, too, where you could have the perfect form going up for a dig, and the deflection in the carom off of your body takes a direction that you're not expecting, and then you're caught off guard and having to kind of readjust and work on the fly to get it back. And then when you're doing that, sometimes you try to adjust on the fly and it doesn't work out, and it costs you a point. So it can go both ways on digs like that. But for Albany State, that has worked out beautifully here in the second set thus far.
And it goes to show you just how hard it is to be a punter in football, getting your foot in the right position as well.
Well, right there, you talk about the trenches in football. Right there, the blockers and the outside hitters are fighting in the trenches, and the blockers had a huge battle between Albany State and Augusta on that point.
Right now, the start of the first set was back and forth, and so far the start of the second set has been back and forth as well. Jaguars take a 4-3 lead. That's going to send Gouveia back to serve it. Talked about how head coach for the Jaguars, Shannon Quarles, she's in her second season, or her 10th season, Sharon Quarles, I should say. She's not afraid to go far for recruiting. As I said, Gouveia is from Brazil, and Mackenzie Beck is from Arizona. So people come from all over to come play sports here at AU. A lot of local talent as well. It's a good mix. We'll go back to serve again. Jaguars up 5-3 here in set 2. This is a basketball atmosphere. And the Golden Rams, I should say, hit it off the net. So the Jaguars score 3 straight, take a 6-3 lead.
It's electric to see, and you kind of feed off this type of energy, especially as a home player, but as well for us up here. If you feel it and you feel the energy, and it just makes this whole atmosphere absolutely as lively as we've seen it in a good while.
That's a good point. And with 4 straight for the Jaguars, Albany State takes timeout, and we talked in set 1 how these timeouts momentarily turn the match around. So we'll see what happens on the other side of this one. as the Golden Rams use their one timeout per set here early on. So in the long run, this set, that'll play to the Jaguars' advantage as the Golden Rams have already used theirs.
You've had some great play from your middle hitters and your outside hitters on both squads, and especially on defense. They turn into defensive players up front, and the battle in the trenches right up at the net has been a joy to watch this game. Augusta's gotten the better of some of those points, and Albany State has fired back on some of those points on their own. So it's been a good back and forth contest and matchup up front in the trenches on both sides of the net for Augusta and Albany State.
Absolutely, and we have a whistle right as the service happens, and not sure what that's about. So we're going to do a reserve. It's 7-4, so Augusta State right off the timeout fires back, like you said. Oh, and they do give Albany State the point. And it's 7-5 now. And Govea falls down as she answers back, and now this time the Jaguars are the team caught off guard on the serve, and it's 7-6, so that's 3 straight for Albany State.
Govea did all she could there, squared her hips away on the dive, just a deflection off of the dig, took the awkward carom, and it caught Augusta and some of the outside hitters off guard, and Albany State capitalizes on a mistake, but Augusta comes right back, and off of a miss attack there on the far side for Albany State, Augusta retains a 2-point advantage. And
a hard serve there, and it goes out, and it's going to go right into the hands of our SID Taylor Lamb. He did a good job on that one.
So he's a former baseball player in his own right, and you know as well as I do, with
showing he still got it in him.
Absolutely, baseball players absolutely have some of the best hands in sports, and he definitely showed it right there.
And that's going to land, and it's 10-7 Augusta. And a whistle. We have a substitution here. And Sharik Brian Garmos checks in, and Kim Krutzinger out of the game for the Jaguars for the moment. Krutzinger is a junior from Colorado Springs, transfer from Jacksonville State University in Alabama. Another one of the newcomers that the Jaguars are getting a little experience in with here. And
she had a really good serve there, but a really strong dig out of that serve, and a very good setup. Kind of rolls across the top of the net, and you know what? Augusta, as we've talked about, is starting to get on one of those runs we talked about earlier, and it's one of those things that, as Savannah Gonzalez is serving, that you don't want to play too perfect, because when you're in a situation like this, if you play too perfect, it opens you up for more mistakes in your game because you're trying to overcompensate and play perfect. So for Albany State, just get back to your style of volleyball, get back to your game, and also implement different strategies to catch the Jaguars off guard like we saw glimpses of in the first set.
Absolutely, we're seeing that here. It's 12-9. And Jaguars, what a beautiful attack there, but unfortunately it lands just out of bounds, so the point goes to the Golden Rams. But what a beautiful ball movement and attacking, and the Jaguars are ready for it on that one, there's no question. 12-10.
Yeah, it to have it that close and that close of a call takes pinpoint accuracy, and sometimes the calls go your way and sometimes they don't, but it shows you how much concentration is delivered on the Jaguar side to have it that close of a call. And if they keep on implementing that type of concentration in this set, they can easily usher out to a 2-0 advantage in this matchup.
And they're on track to do that here, but the Golden Rams not going away. Albany State Golden Rams in their road blue with yellow numbers. The Jaguars in their home whites with bluish black numbers, and both teams with their logo on the top right of their uniforms. Or the top left, I should say. 14-11 Jaguars. The Jaguars libero Holland Martin in the blue with white numbers, and the Golden Ram libero in white with purple number.
Well, you saw right there on the last point that Tamaya Jones was anticipating the ball going to her right, and when Augusta surprised her and the ball went to the left, she could not shift her weight back fast enough to try to save and dig that point out.
And, oh, what a stop by Mackenzie Beck, guarding the out-of-bounds line, and they get it across on a very hard-hit ball. And right now it's very back and forth. The Jaguars with some very nice saves. They get it over the net. And the Golden Rams not letting the Jaguars having any of it either, but the Jaguars do get the kill on that one at 16-11.
A nice soft touch there by Govea up at the front there, helped set up that play, kind of brought the defense in, and once they retaliated back and Augusta blocked that ball, it shot the ball over to the outside hitters, and that's where Augusta shined on that play.
And the Jaguars once again on the great kill at 17-11, and it's a beautiful job having your tallest players guard right up on the net, just having to reach over the net and just hit it down.
Yeah, those middle hitters, and when they become defense, as we saw last year, Augusta was almost lights out in that department, and they continue that spread here today.
And it's 17-12 now. So after this weekend tournament, so the Jaguars take on Mount Olive in the fourth game of the quadruple header today, tentatively beginning at 7:30, as they'll have a few hours in between, with two other games in between today to get ready for the Montevallo game here today. And tomorrow they play in the second game of tomorrow's doubleheader, beginning tentatively at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time against Montevallo. As tomorrow there's just two games, so 6 games in total for this weekend's Jaguar Rumble tournament to begin the season. And next weekend the Jaguars will play 4 games in the Queens tournament, traveling to Charlotte, North Carolina. They'll play 2 on Friday, 1 against Anderson and another against Winston-Salem. And on Saturday, so on Friday of next week, they'll play at 12:45 and 5:15. And then on September 1st, travel to they take on Wingate at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. That's 7 a.m. Pacific. For those of you listening on the West Coast, hope you get up extra early next Saturday to tune in. And then they'll take on Barton at 4:45 p.m. Eastern Time on September 1st. And then return here to Grayson-Berry Fieldhouse on September the 7th, a Friday, to take on Catawba at 7 p.m. And then a doubleheader on September 8th against Carson Newman and against West Albany at 2:30 and 5 p.m.
Albany State right there uses a really good timeout, because you could tell they were getting caught by surprise on the back of their heels, not adjusting well to the ball in the air, and Augusta was exposing holes in their defense, so a very critical timeout to try to turn the tide of this set here for Albany State.
It's 20-13 Jaguars. Albany State has used both of their timeouts here. And quite the trip for them, traveling from the capital city of upstate New York to come all the way down to Augusta, Georgia for a weekend tournament. Here, they're trying to make the most of it.
You want to talk about camaraderie, though, and we mentioned it from the top. Those type of trips build chemistry.
Absolutely.
More than you know, because you're on the road for almost what seems like 10 hours at that point. And
a whole weekend.
Absolutely. And being able to get to know the players, build the chemistry, will help them excel in their regular season coming up.
21-13. Jaguars with an 8-point lead here in set 2. Gouveia with a strong serve. They get it across. Beck digs it up. And that's going to land out of bounds. That's a point for the Golden Rams of Albany State.
Just a touch outside, but as we mentioned earlier, Augusta's bringing back a strong roster with a lot of returning players that ushered them into, as you said earlier, the semifinals of the playoffs. So a very stacked roster for Augusta, and Albany State is doing quite well for themselves, hanging in the first set, and then also putting up a good fight here in the second as well.
22-14 is Jaguars once again with the kill guarding the net. Classes here at Augusta University for the fall term have begun. Did they begin this week or last week, Blake?
If I'm not mistaken, I think they began middle of the week this week.
And from where I come from, it seems like very early to start school. It's still the middle of the summer in August in Georgia, Anyway,
right smack dab in a hotbed of humidity and heat.
Absolutely. And nonetheless, with classes in session, the Jaguars now have homework in. We have a lot of students in attendance here today showing support for their athletics, and of course that's because the classes have begun, and we have a really good turnout of students, especially as you can see, and I think that's a beautiful thing to see here early on.
Oh, absolutely. And as you see, I know the girls down on the court definitely appreciate it and are feeding off of it, because not only is this a good turnout, but this has been one of the best crowds we have seen for an Augusta volleyball game in a good while. So it's awesome to see the support coming out for the team and also the tournament at hand, because as you mentioned, we still have 3 games on tap for the fans to enjoy.
3 games today, 2 tomorrow, 5 remaining after this weekend. Just what an outstanding preseason tournament it is. And you mentioned it earlier, Blake, how important it is for the travel of the visiting teams here today, for Albany State and the other teams participating in this tournament, to be able to gel. That's why it's so important to do these earlier in this season, because, I mean, let's face it, you got to gel earlier in the season so you have these to have that opportunity here early on, and it gives teams an early opportunity as well to see what they're made of and have time later in the season to learn from these things, to gain a lot of early experience before conference play begins in a few weeks.
And that right there is why I love this style of tournament play to start off the year, because it not only gets you in the trenches and builds your chemistry for the conference season coming up for both teams later on this year, but you get a really good idea against really good competition as to the outlook of your team and where it can go, what can be built off of that team, and you get a really good outlook for the season to come. And these types of matchups here are very good building blocks to kind of establish a base and kind of establish the foundations of your style of play, and then elevate your team from there going forward.
Absolutely. The Jaguars have taken the second set and have taken a 2-0 lead here. As we get set for the start of the third set, we'll take a quick break, and we'll be back shortly. Welcome back to Harrison-Berry Fieldhouse. The Jaguars lead 2-0, looking to close out the first set of a quadruple header. So set to start set 3 here in the inaugural game of the 2018 season.
Yeah, you've seen a really good team in Augusta utilize different strategies and get everybody involved in the game, whether it be sets, digs, setups for attacks. And every particular player that's been on the court has been utilized very well. But also look for Govea and Beck for Augusta to come up very crucial for the Jags as the game and the match moves forward. Because those two players, along with Gonzalez and Bolton, have been really clutch.
Absolutely. It's tied at 1. And that goes out of bounds, and Jaguars get the point as the Golden Rams hit that one a little hard on the attack. It goes all the way to the end out of bounds. So 2-1 Jaguars. In the second game of our quadruple header coming up next, it'll be Montevallo against Mount Olive. And then Albany State will play again in the third match of our quadruple header, tentatively beginning at 5. And then the Jaguars will play again in our fourth and final set. So both these teams here in this one will have a little break in the action before they play again. So each of the 4 participating teams in this tournament plays twice today and once tomorrow. And that's how we get 4 matches today and 2 tomorrow. That's how that's going to work. And they get it across, and the Jaguars get the point as they hit it right into the perfect spot there. It's 4-1. Govea back to serve. She's way back on this one to serve it. He gets it up, and now it'll be the attack turn for the Golden Rams, and that's going to be off of the hands of a diving libero, Holland Martin, out of bounds. Martin, a key returner. She's only a sophomore. We'll see a lot of her. She was an important role last year as a freshman on what was last season a very young Jaguar ball club. This year, a very experienced team, the complete opposite of that. They're on the attack. They get it across. Now it's a lot more back and forth action here in terms of hitting it back and forth compared to what we saw in the first 2 sets. And the Jaguars get the point. The Jaguars off to a good start here in set 3. Contrast to sets 1 and 2, which started off back and forth before the Jaguars began to pull away. They lead at 5-2. Blake, what are you most looking forward to about conference play this season?
Competition level. Because
Absolutely.
it's getting stronger year by year, and it's going to be a rigorous road for everyone in the conference for the Peach Belt Conference.
Absolutely.
And the Jags, with their returning players, definitely have a small advantage, but it is going to be stiffer and a lot more rigorous for them to do what they did last year. But as we talked about, with the team chemistry, the juniors and seniors providing the motivation, in the down times, being able to build the team back up, and with head coach Sharon Quarles' guidance, this team could definitely do what they did last year and eclipse what they did last year as well.
Absolutely, and that's certainly the big goal that this team is focused on since mid-November when last season ended, the whole offseason to get ready. And to build on that, last season the Jaguars reached the semifinals of the Peach Belt Conference Tournament. So they want to reach at least the finals and beyond this year. They lead at 8-2. We have a timeout here. So the second game will feature Mount Olive against Montevallo. And the third game, Montevallo will play back-to-back and take on Albany State, and then the Jaguars will take on Montevallo in the fourth game. In game one of tomorrow's doubleheader, beginning at noon Eastern Time, it will be Albany State against Mount Olive. And Montevallo will take on the Jaguars in the tournament finale. Second game of tomorrow's doubleheader to wrap things up. As you can see, the team's getting ready for the second game, doing a little stretching pregame. 9-2. Jaguars off to a very fast start here in set 3. And they're on the serve. The Jaguars have a very interesting rotation here to start this season, as we're seeing early on. As like I mentioned last year, Gouveia was the primary server. She's served plenty so far in this game, but they've rotated a lot more people this season. What a beautiful kill by Beck as she just barely tips it over to the perfect spot, Blake.
Excellent strategy there by Beck. Instead of going for the hard attack and the kill, just a soft touch right in between the defense and a massive hole she exploited, and the Jags continue to implement those type of strategies to continue to break away here in the third set as they are up in a major fashion here by 9 points.
9 points being 11-2. It's interesting in volleyball, it's interesting to note just how far back the servers are when they serve and how hard they have to hit it to avoid a service error. Serving's a lot harder than it looks.
Absolutely, and especially being as the net is higher than some of the tallest players that you have on your court, so you almost have to, in a way, hit it hard, but hit it in an angle to where it goes up and over, and that's where the jump comes in as well that you see on a lot of the serves to get it over the net and into the opposing defense.
12-2 Jaguars. And this being a match set for the Golden Rams, who essentially, if this were a playoff situation, you'd be facing elimination down 2-0 in a best of 5. That's basically what the Golden Rams are facing, but they're really in a big hole here. We'll knock on wood as there is no game clock in volleyball. And it's now 13-2 Jaguars as the Golden Rams there hit it to the net, fail to hit it across.
The Golden Rams have been battling valiantly out on the court, but Augusta, if they're not exposing holes on the defense, their middle hitters and outside hitters and that front that Augusta has been killing it up front, and they've been garnering points on the blocking side of volleyball as well. So it's a dual threat that Augusta is imposing on Albany State, and as valiantly as they've been fighting, Robert, they haven't really come up with an answer for both of those tactics that Augusta has been implementing.
No, they haven't. It's 14-2, and I believe that's the second timeout already used by the Golden Rams just this set. So they've got to battle back, down 2-0, down 14-2 in set 3, and no timeouts to work with.
And it's key too on serves and seeing how the opposing defense sets up, because you can look and find different holes to maneuver the defense and not necessarily say manipulate the defense on where you want them to go to score the points, but maneuver the defense in directions to where it opens up more holes for you to expose on the defense and cinch in those critical points that you're seeking.
That's absolutely right. The Jaguars get another point, and it's 15-2, and they are just on some sort of roll. believe that's at least 8 straight for them. And think about, even though they'll have several hours of a break before their next game, think about the amount of momentum they're going to carry over when they face Mount Olive tonight. And if you're Mount Olive watching this game, does this worry you a little bit in terms of, I mean, they're not going to look past their matchup, their first matchup today, but will this worry them looking ahead on the schedule? High pop fly. And the Rams get it across. Now the Jaguars on the attack. And that's off the fingertips of Kim Krutzinger. Or correction. That's off of Tomaya Jones. And it's 16-3 now. Jaguars 9 points away from taking their first match of the season. They get it across, and it's up in the air. And that's going to be hard hit all the way across the court, out of bounds. Point. Augusta 17-3. A touchdown and a field goal, or 2 touchdowns and a field goal to 1 field goal is the score now.
And I like the way Augusta sets up here because it opens up the ability to move anywhere on the court. When you have 3 back-to-back defenders behind each other like that, it allows you more open areas to defend once you move out. It's almost like, as we keep alluding to, in football, a wide receiver in motion going on a different side. It opens up new landscape for them to roam and new areas, in this case, for the Jags to defend a serve.
Hard hit, back and forth. It's about as hard as hit back and forth as you've seen this game here in that one, or this match. Up in the air, the Jaguars trying to hit it across. They do, and they get the point.
Just a little bit of a delayed reaction right there by Dominique Austin. I don't think she was ready for the ball to come her way. And Augusta takes full advantage of it for their 18th point.
They get it across. It's 18-4. And they get the kill goes to, it is a point to the Jaguars on the kill. It's 19-4. They get it across. Up in the air. Jaguars on the defense. Back across. On a very hard hit ball. And point for the Jaguars as that was weakly hit to the net by Albany State. It's 20-4. If you want to complete a sweep in a match, this is about as emphatic of a style to do it as you've seen in a set 3.
Absolutely, Augusta's cooking on all cylinders, and as we've been talking about, they've got their matchup with Mount Olive tonight, but as we talked about Montevallo coming up, Augusta's, they don't have a lot of holes, it's looking like, later on in their game, and they've kind of stitched up what they did have in the open, and it makes for a more difficult task to try to execute and force holes to be open from the opposing offense on the Augusta defense, and that's something that you haven't seen executed very well from the Albany State side, is them trying to create the holes for them to score the points off of.
And that bounces off the net and over to the Jaguars' side. And the Jaguars somehow do manage to get it across. Another hard hit ball.
In which we did see that very well in the first and second sets, but it's kind of faltered here for Albany State in the third.
And it's 22-5. Just everything going right for the Jaguars here in this set. Holland Martin, the libero, will serve it. And that's up in the air. And what a diving stop. Beautiful play. That was by Brooklyn Holthouse. But ultimately the point goes to Albany State. But what a good defensive play on the dive that was by Holthouse. 22-6.
The setup on the touch over is what created that point for Albany State. Her body told Augusta, the outside hitter's body for Albany State, that she was going in the center of the court. And then she redirected to the outside edge of the court, and Holland did all she could to try to dig that out, but she couldn't get there in time. That was a very good decision by Albany State to utilize that and score their 6 point.
And it's now 23-7. Jaguars on the attack. They get the point, and it's match point. 24-7. Jaguars with the lead. They'll do a quick substitution here with it being match point.
Albany State, it looked like they thought it was going to be more of a soft touch instead of a kill like Augusta had delivered to them, as you saw several players in a dig position trying to dig that out and sliding to their knees. They couldn't come up with a dig at all.
And the Jaguars get the point and the match. They win set 3, 25-7, and sweep the match 3-0 over Albany State. Improve to 1-0 on the season. And we'll have their second match of the season tonight in the nightcapper, the fourth game of our quadruple header, beginning tentatively at 7:30 against Montevello. Coming up next, however, Blake, we will have it will be a correction against Mount Olive tonight. Coming up next, it will be Mount Olive facing Montevello in game 2 of our quadruple header.
Should be a really fun matchup and a good matchup to watch, as both teams are sound. But fatigue may have come into factor here with Albany State. They put up a good fight in the first and second sets of this match, but you could tell that it caught up with them in the third set. And Augusta looks fierce, looks strong, and will be hard for the opposing Peach Belt Conference to handle as we move forward in the season. A very solid game of execution, game plan, footwork, eye movement, and everything you want to see from your squad if you're sharing quarrels implemented right there. A solid game from Augusta as they get the victory.
Absolutely. And solid game that is indeed, as they get ready for the second match of our quadruple header, beginning in 82 minutes. They begin the countdown on the clock here at Chris and Berry Fieldhouse, as the Jaguars will not play again tonight until 7:30 Eastern Time. We will take a quick break, and in just over an hour we'll be back to bring you the second match of our quadruple header. This has been a special presentation of the Augusta University of the Athletics Network on YouTube. For Blake Collins, I'm Robert Ambrose. Stay tuned, everybody.